Hi, I'm Gary Smith. I'm a PhD student at Liberty University. And the title of my research paper is Hastings 1066, The End of Old England and the Beginning of the New. I'm interested in this project because I've been to the Hastings battlefield in England and saw the Bayeux Tapestry in Bayeux, France, which records the Norman conquest saga. The thesis question that I researched was, what impact did the Battle of Hastings have on England? This is important because the linguistic, cultural, social, and governmental structure of an entire nation changed because of a single battle. The sources were contemporary historians who recorded events at that time. Anglo-Saxon King of England, Edward, did not have an heir, and Edward's choice of who was to succeed him was his second cousin, Duke William of Normandy. Edward had designated William as his heir in 1051. And also in 1064, Edward sent Earl Harold Godwinson of Wessex to Normandy to affirm Edward's choice of William as king. Harold, while in Normandy, swore allegiance to William as the next king when Edward died. Why did Edward choose his second cousin William to be his successor? The likely reason was Edward believed he was the best choice to combat the Viking menace. Centuries before and during Edward's life and reign, England dealt with the Viking threat. Vikings, notorious for their deprivations, terrorized England's coastal towns. Defenders were wantonly murdered and the towns pillaged and burned. Women were publicly raped and men and women captives were sold into slavery. Edward died on January the 5th, 1066. Harold, in spite of swearing allegiance to William, became king on January the 6th, 1066, the very next day. The Anglo-Saxon Witan, composed of leading advisors and nobles, approved Harold as king. Harold's ruling name was Harold II. However, a contender for the English throne, Harold Hardrada, king of Norway, and the brother of Harold II, Tostig, invaded northern England and landed at York. Harold marched to York and defeated Hardrada at the Battle of Stamford Bridge. Both Hardrada and Tostig were killed in the fighting. Duke William of Normandy believed that Harold had stolen the crown that was rightfully his. William began to plan an invasion of England, and within 9 months, William built an estimated 700 or more ships for that purpose, of transporting an estimated 14,000 to 15,000 soldiers and as many as 2,000 horses across the English Channel. On September the 27th, 1066, William's ships were loaded and all night sailed across the English Channel. The fleet landed unopposed on the morning of September the 28th. News of William's fleet landing in England likely reached Harold by early October. Harold marched his troops to London from Stamford Bridge, which was 200 miles away. In London, Harold made preparations to meet William's force. Harold left London on a 60-mile march to Hastings on October the 11th. William had burned and plundered English villages after he landed. William had likely done this to goad Harold into coming to him, since Harold as king would have felt an obligation to come to the aid of his people. The Battle of Hastings was fought on October the 14th, 1066. William's soldiers outnumbered Harold's 3-1. And during the fighting, Harold was struck with an arrow in his eye and died instantly. The Anglo-Saxons, who had traveled more than 250 miles by that time, were exhausted, and they left the battlefield after Harold was killed. William traveled to London, where he was crowned king as William I on Christmas Day, 1066. Leadership after the Battle of Hastings consisted of 4 Norman kings and 1 Norman queen, whose descendants were 8 Plantagenet kings, and their total Norman and Plantagenet reigns were 333 years. What impact did these kings and 1 queen have on England? The language changed, for one thing. Thousands of French words came into Anglo-Saxon English. Also, the Norman tax system impacted England. The Normans then impacted architecture. Romanesque castles and cathedrals were built by the Normans, and much of their work survives. The Normans impacted religious life, and by the end of William's reign, the church was almost totally Normanized. And finally, Norman laws replaced Anglo-Saxon laws, which in some instances were imported into the American colonies and the states. Thank you very much.